Meet the Stargazer, the electric, venomous monster of the sea, and new addition to my nightmares. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault, and you're watching Animalogic. Stargazers are fish of two families, electric stargazers and sand stargazers. We are going to be talking about electric stargazers. Stargazers look like two different creatures. One, a bit of an oddly shaped fish when they're swimming around, and the other, a vaguely human monster hybrid face when they're buried in the sand. It's this second form that they get their romantic name from. Stargazers are ambush hunters, adept at burying themselves in sand and waiting for prey to swim by. When it does, they shoot out from hiding, creating a vacuum with their oral cavity that sucks prey into their oversized mouths. Their bites are breathtakingly fast, capturing their prey within 150 milliseconds. There are over 20 different species of stargazers, ranging in size from 15 centimeters to just under a meter long. And they can be found all over the world in relatively shallow water, usually between 5 and 150 meters deep. Being ambush hunters, stargazers are not picky eaters, but usually find themselves eating unsuspecting small fish, crustaceans, and cephalopods. In order to dig themselves into the ocean floor, they have large shovel-like fins, perfect for burrowing in and waiting for prey. In case you were thinking these amazing little monsters weren't frightening enough, they're both venomous and electric, so that's fun. Their venom is located in two sharp, long, bony spines on their back that can fold down. Stargazers primarily use their venom to deter predators and to kill prey. Humans get stung by them fairly often, but the venom isn't usually lethal, though there have been several reported fatalities from the Mediterranean species Uranoscopus scaber. Stargazer venom is a bit of a mystery. Scientists haven't been able to determine what the venom is or even how it works. When they have tried to remove the venom from their glands, they were unable to confirm any toxicity in the substance. Scientists believe this is because their venom is highly unstable. As I mentioned before, stargazers are not only venomous but capable of producing electric shocks. Many species of stargazer come equipped with electroplaxies, which are these stacks of polarized, flattened muscle cells that function somewhat like a capacitor. They're capable of producing a 50-volt shock, potentially enough to scare off predators, but not quite enough to stun prey, as some researchers have previously thought, though its specific function is still unknown. This electric organ, which is located behind their eyes, when triggered, creates a current that flows through the body of the fish.
He's kind of biting. Boy, that's like a stargazer. Something really poisonous.
You just threw it on the baby.
I didn't know the baby was there. I think I touched the spike at some point.
This whole process is incredibly fast and is over in milliseconds. In order to make another zap, they'll need to charge their batteries by snacking on prey. While they usually create short bursts of electric energy, occasionally during spawning, stargazers will create a longer burst of electricity, lasting several seconds, in order to help them find mates. Some species of stargazers come equipped with lures to help them snag prey. These resemble worms that are attached to a fishing rod-like appendage on their lower lip. If you look closely at their mouths, you'll see that they kind of look like zippers. In fact, the mouth of the stargazer is interlocked with tiny bristles which prevent sand from falling into their mouths when they're buried. A system that works about as well as it can, but still lets some sand in when they open their mouths to grab dinner. But stargazers have a second lure as well. This one is their specialized gills. They will discharge seawater next to their pectoral fin, which causes the sand to swirl around a bit as if there was a very small fish present. When a larger fish comes to check it out, the stargazer opens up its mouth and snaps it up. They will also use their eyes to lure in prey. Once a small fish is almost in range, the stargazer will rotate one of their contralateral eyes in order to give the impression that a small burrowing creature is there. This will draw in a curious fish before, As if these little monsters didn't have enough going for them, some species, like the Black Sea Stargazer or Uranoscopus scaber, comes equipped with the ability to create acoustic pulses. They can emit a low-frequency acoustic discharge between 5 and 10 hertz, just below the human hearing threshold, which researchers believe they use to stun prey and attract mates. Funny how those two abilities often coincide, isn't it? Swimming into an anglerfish is like winning the nature-watching lottery. So few of them have ever been seen alive. And they're so bizarre that whenever we get news of a sighting, it becomes an international event. So let's talk with the diver who got some of the most amazing nature footage in years in an Animalogic exclusive interview. This is the anglerfish. Anglerfish are some of the weirdest fish in the ocean. It's almost impossible to see them alive, and most of their behavior is still a mystery. And yet, they're famous worldwide because of their terrifying appearance. So what's it like to see an anglerfish in person? And what's the worst that can happen? So let's go straight to the source. Earlier this year, a researcher and photographer became a global sensation after his footage of a 6-centimeter-long humpback anglerfish went viral. Our producer, Andreas, sat down to chat with him about his amazing footage and experience.
I'm David Jara. I work as a doctor here in Barcelona, but I also work as a photographer, and also I do special trips in the open sea to find and photograph and also research about sharks, rays and cetaceans here in the Barcelona coast.
What were you doing when you saw the anglerfish?
I was in Tenerife Island, in the Canary Islands, with some friends from there. We were doing a research trip with a boat to find blue sharks, but we were all the day trying to find them, and we had no luck. So we were coming back from the ocean to the land when my friend Laia, a marine biologist that was with me in that boat, found that black shadow in the surface, and we suddenly stopped the boat and we realized what we had. So we got mad at that moment because this animal is crazy, you know. For us it's really beautiful and really amazing to find it and also to find it alive. So we went into the water, we tried to make that pictures that everybody has seen these days. For me, it was like a legendary animal, you know. So for me, as a photographer, as a marine life lover, I was amazed about this encounter. I actually, the water was so cold, but I went into the water just with my underwear, no wetsuit, nothing. Just I went to the water fast as I can to be able to see this animal alive, to take that picture. So that for me was amazing. Also for my all of my friends that were there. So that's what I can say. It was really amazing moment for me. I will remember this all my life, I think.
Of course, the fact that a deep-water fish was so close to the surface is a clear sign that the fish wasn't doing well. We don't know for sure, but most researchers believe it was sick or injured.
Yeah, the fish was pretty bad. I mean, in a pretty bad condition. The fish was swimming like this in a bizarre way, going towards the surface and going up and down. She had like the skin a little bit broken in some parts. So the fish was maybe sick. We don't know if it was already sick from the deep and then went out, or if the simple thing of being in the surface was the thing that made it in that condition. But the fish was already not good, and eventually she died actually while we were filming it.
What happened to the fish after?
As this fish is very interesting, we collected and we brought it to the Tenerife Museum to be preserved and to be studied. Actually, the museum decided to not to open the fish to do the necropsy, but just to preserve it, to show to the people of Tenerife Island, or to anybody that comes to the museum that amazing fish, and some information about it. And maybe in the future they can do some genetic research.
In a way, it's a happy ending for the fish. It didn't have a chance to survive, but now it's forever an example of the beauty and biodiversity of its ecosystem. Thank you, David, for sharing your amazing experience with us. The Black Sea Monster. Their nickname, not a judgment based on their appearance, was also very small, at just about 6 centimeters long. Full-grown adults can be over twice as long as this individual. There is something unique about these fish that gets our survival spidey senses tingling. They look dangerous, even at 6 centimeters. So let's take a look at anglerfish more broadly and figure out why they're like that. Like, first of all, what is an anglerfish? Anglerfish is an umbrella term for fish within the Lophiiformes order, most of which have a lure, or esca, to attract prey. There are over 200 species worldwide. Some live near the shore, but the weird ones that we think of when we hear the name are usually deep-water fishes. Some of their cousins also have escas, but they more often than not mimic fish prey, like worms or even crustacean larvae. But the anglerfish do something different. They host bioluminescent bacteria to let there be light at the bottom of the ocean. This bioluminescent lure is sometimes taken for granted. Yeah, a deepwater fish has strange adaptations, but there are still lots of questions scientists are still working out. We know that the esca is more of a follow-the-light trap than a miner's helmet lamp. Their prey moves slowly towards it, possibly expecting to find food, and then get swallowed whole by the massive mouth of the anglerfish. Opening and closing the mouth creates a vacuum that sucks in its prey. We see similar behaviors in frogfish and other Lophiiforms. But the real question is, how did it get to that? We don't know how the anglerfish acquires the bacteria it needs to shine bright like a diamond, though the most common hypothesis is that they get it from the seawater. We don't even know how it controls the intensity of the light, or what's going on at the molecular level to produce it. We also don't know how it navigates its dark waters when not using the light. If you have any ideas, let us know in the comments. And despite their massive mouths, teeth, and lures, most anglerfish that are caught by fishing boats or those who wash up on beaches have empty stomachs. So we don't know a whole lot about what they eat either. Okay, so in the absence of direct evidence, we have to take the little clues we have to paint a bigger picture. We know that they live in very deep waters, where light doesn't often penetrate. We know that prey doesn't come along often, and that whenever it does, the anglerfish has to eat as much as possible. The big mouth, as well as a stretchy stomach, help them catch and digest animals as big as themselves. Detecting prey is another issue. Some anglerfish have sort of mirror eyes that reflect light back into the retina. This serves a similar function to the tapetum lucidum in mammals and other land vertebrates. The idea is to prevent any light from being wasted. But when that's not enough, anglerfish have a sixth sense to detect prey. Their bodies are lined with sensory pores. These are helpful in sensing changes in water pressure and salinity, but they can also detect electrical signals from the muscle contractions of their prey. But of course, they're not the only ones who are perfectly adapted to life in the abyss. Their prey is also used to the crushing pressure, the extreme cold, the near pitch black conditions, and the low food availability. And more importantly, they also have sensory pores or organs to sense when there's a predator around. So, what does the anglerfish do? For a fish like this, stillness is the right move. Their comically small pelvic and pectoral fins help them make tiny adjustments to almost hover in the water. This prevents them from being spotted by prey, but also conserves a lot of energy in an environment where every calorie matters. And speaking of calories, here's another mystery about anglerfish. We're still not sure how anglerfish store their energy for the periods of time between meals. They have fatty deposits and low metabolic rates, but they don't have oily livers like deepwater sharks. So we don't know how long they can fast. Males of some species have figured out that it's better to let a female catch all the food for a little sperm. So, quick myth busting. Not all species have males that attach themselves to the female permanently. In many instances, the male just sticks around until the female spawns and then leaves. But the most amazing cases are those like the warty sea devil, long-ray sea devil, and soft sea devil, where the males, who are much smaller than their females, find their mate by her pheromones and then attach themselves to her permanently. The male releases enzymes through his mouth that make his lips fuse to her skin. After a while, the male goes blind, its fins atrophy, and its internal organs, other than the testes, stop working. Its only function becomes supplying the female with sperm. And the female will be in charge of providing him with all the necessary nutrients to survive. In a way, they turn themselves into living scrotums. In some cases, a single female can have multiple males attached to her. It's a bizarre system, which kind of makes sense. If you might only run into a potential partner once in your life, you better do your best to show your worth to her and stick around forever. But at the same time, it's such a strange adaptation that it's hard to imagine how it developed. So let's dig into their evolution a little bit to see how this could have evolved. Lophiiformes appeared 100 million years ago and were descendants of other deepwater fish. From there, they spread all over the world, occupying several different niches, but roughly maintaining a similar body plan, mating, and ambush predation strategies. Early anglerfish that stuck with the female longer might have had an advantage over those who were quick to release her after fertilizing the eggs. Over time, the clinginess became the expectation, and the extra touchy males made it a lot more than the more chill ones. Over millions of years, this turned into the sexual parasitism that we see today. The anglerfish's other adaptations are also a mystery. Early versions of the anglerfish resembled modern-day monkfish. These ugly little guys don't have the bioluminescent esca, but have the big mouth to suck in their prey. Since they live in shallower waters, there's more prey availability, and just hiding at the bottom gives them enough cover to ambush their prey. So the monkfish is the baseline, but from there, all different species adapted to new environments. Frogfishes, also members of the Lophiiformes order, have growths that resemble the algae or corals that they live in. That makes sense. But when some species started going into deep water, things got weird. The combination of darkness, low food, high pressure, and cold created a huge variety of species. Their variety in itself is a huge mystery. We don't know what evolutionary pressures led to different types of anglerfish. Or in other words, why isn't there one kind of anglerfish, like the perfect anglerfish all over the world, instead of hundreds of species? We might just be too terrestrial to understand the difference between different types of deep water. This mystery, as well as the question of whether they have a social life, remains important areas of research. If you're into fishes and want to make a difference in our understanding of anglerfish, consider studying them. Many species are still very understudied, and every new piece of the puzzle helps us understand these weirdos a little better.
This is the shark alignment chart, starting with the most fun corner, Chaotic Evil. Obviously, no other shark could claim this spot but the famously grumpy bull shark. At just under 3 meters long, these toothy boys are not the biggest sharks in the ocean, but they make up for it by not giving a dang about anything. They're like the honey badgers, the sea. They'll eat anything they want, including unusual prey for sharks, like land mammals, birds, and dolphins.
But what makes them truly chaotic is their behavior around people. They're the most unpredictable shark in the ocean. They are bullies, and when there's food around, they become greedy and brutal.
They're one of the few sharks that can live in fresh water, which opens a whole world of feeding opportunities. Whether you're a pelican in the Mississippi, or perhaps a saltwater croc in Australia, or maybe even a capybara on the banks of the Amazon, you might just end up in a bull shark's belly. Let's go find the goody two-shoes in the lawful good corner, and here is the blacktip reef shark. As their name suggests, these guys live in reefs. They're quite common at the Great Barrier Reef, for example.
These sharks live in large groups, get along with each other, and are hugely important to their habitats.
Blacktips are the protectors of these reefs, which are the only home to hundreds of species.
To keep the reefs safe from destruction, they kill the habitat destroyers.
Several fish species, such as the parrotfish, eat corals, but the blacktips are always there to control their populations. By devouring them, of course.
They're the last line of defense against the main threat to their ecosystem. Other than humans, that is.
Without blacktips and other reef sharks, corals collapse due to parrotfish overpopulation. Save sharks, save coral reefs. Blacktip sharks are the paladins of the reef. Nothing can rattle these majestic mouth breathers. They are the true neutral shark, the chillest sharks in the ocean, whale sharks. They have no reason not to be chill. They're the largest fish in the ocean. They can be up to 15 meters long and weigh up to 15 tons. Whoa. They can also live over 100 years. So they're not in any hurry to get anything done today. Their entire life consists of slowly swimming around warm oceans with their mouth open, catching plankton by the bucket load. That's right! Despite their size, most of their prey are no bigger than a grain of rice.
To see this neutral evil shark, we have to dive into the heart of darkness to meet the most cartoonishly evil-looking animal in the world, the Goblin Shark.
They're the definition of neutral evil. They're out there just looking out for themselves. They're not thinking about the other fish in the ocean. Ha! These sharks are solitary, deep-sea dwellers, with a weird jaw that does not conform to the rest of shark society. Their giant nose is packed with electroreceptors, which help them find prey at the bottom of the ocean. They'll eat anything they can find, from crabs to squid, as long as the risk doesn't outweigh the reward. Once a prey is nearby, their jaw shoots out and their nail-like teeth impale their prey. They call this slingshot feeding. They never saw it coming. It's time for chaotic good, and that is the basking shark. It's one of the largest fish in the ocean, with some individuals reaching 8 meters in length. It's also the heaviest at 15 tons, and with a mouth that's probably larger than you. Whoa, all that weight lets them live how they want to, with little fear of predators. And so, they spend their lives drifting in the ocean, eating plankton, and being one of the most chill sharks in the world. And though super chill doesn't mean they're shy. They also have a chaotic side. During the courtship season, they meet up in shoals of up to 100 sharks and swim in circles around each other. We still don't know exactly what that means, but we do know that chaotic group swims help them meet a nice partner. They are a little strange and chill, but they're probably the nicest sharks in the world.
Moving into the neutral zone, we have the tiger shark, a feared predator with an important job it takes seriously. This is the lawful neutral shark.
He might look like a rogue, but this shark keeps the balance of the ocean ecosystem. It's true lawful neutral. This is the tiger shark. Maybe one of the prettiest sharks in the world due to its patterned skin, the tiger shark is also one of the most voracious, and they'll eat anything, including man-made objects like car tires. This behavior has earned them the nickname of garbage eater. Their list of prey is also huge, but it includes some animals that would damage ecosystems if left unchecked. Sea turtles, for example, can decimate seagrass patches. Tiger sharks know that nobody is above maritime law. not even the cutest animals, and make sure their populations are under control. A tiger shark is the ocean's sheriff.
I am a lawman, a lone wolf of justice.
It's a thankless job, but somebody's gotta do it to preserve the oceans. Thanks, tiger sharks.
Speaking of good guys,
It's time for neutral good, the shark with the Disney princess eyes. The blue shark. These neutral good boys are relatives of the much more aggressive tiger and oceanic white-tip sharks, but they prefer the chill life, hanging with their pals. They're one of the only species known to hunt in groups, which is especially useful when you're hunting fast fish like tuna. But when it comes time to make cute dopey-eyed baby sharks, their true nature comes to light. Their mating behavior involves fighting each other, almost to the brink of death. Those who manage to mate usually carry the scars for the rest of their lives. And yet, if you're swimming and come across this good boy, don't be scared. He's just out for a stroll. Just please, pretty please, don't try to date them. It's time for Chaotic Neutral. Today, we're talking about the sand tiger shark, a needle-toothed giant found all over the world. Their life is what you would expect of a shark, hunting smaller prey and swimming around the bottom of the ocean. But what makes them chaotic neutral is their reproduction. Pregnant females have 2 separate uterine horns, with up to 50 babies swimming freely in them and feeding on yolk. But once the biggest baby gets big enough, it will begin cannibalizing all of the other babies until only one baby remains in each uterine horn. It's a ruthless way to start your life. But from the point of view of the mom, she's providing her babies with enough food to get big and start their life strong. They're also literally babies eating other babies, so it's hard to say they're good. They're the perfect chaotic neutral shark.
finally, we uncover the last shark on the chart.
It's time for lawful evil. They're not the biggest, smartest, or fastest shark, but for millions of years, the great white has kept the seas under its iron fin. At a whopping 6 meters in length and 2 tons in weight, it can eat pretty much anything it wants to with no fear of predators, except for the occasional killer whale encounter. Great white sharks abide by their own rules, and generally only open water animals are fair game, while smaller prey are left alone. But their favorite prey are mammals. Luckily for us, compared to seals, we're too scrawny to be worth their while. These sharks have ruled the oceans by methodically outcompeting their rivals, and eating any animal that gets in their way. They're the judge, jury, and executioners of the ocean. The true lawful evil. So evil.
The ocean is deep, dark, cold, and full of mysteries. The bottom is so poorly understood that we know the surface of Mars better than the depths of our oceans. But what we do know is that down there, things get big. Some might even say giant. Shrimp-like crustaceans longer than your forearm. Isopods the size of cats, crabs the size of cars, and squid so massive they could square off with a school bus. But why? What is the reason behind these species growing so much longer than their shallow water cousins? This is deep sea gigantism.
Why does living in the deep make everything so weirdly gigantic? Is it something in the water? Or is it something missing from the bottom of the ocean? Let's take a deep dive into what's really going on down there and why life in the deep tends to go big or go home.
The ocean is weird all over. But the real mythological creature-like stuff starts happening at around 1,000 meters, or 3,200 feet. That's like 3 Empire State Buildings stacked one on top of the other, but imagine they were all covered in water. This is the Midnight Zone. The sun doesn't shine here. It's an unforgiving place, and yet over 3/4 of the ocean are over 1,000 meters deep. So there is more area of deep ocean than there is land on Earth.
This place is dark,
cold, and home to one of the ocean's most mysterious and oldest giants, the Greenland shark.
These massive sharks get up to 6.5 meters, or about as long as an American pickup truck. They're the third largest sharks in the world, but the largest active predators, because the whale shark and basking shark are plankton eaters. As you can probably tell by their name, these massive fish live in the cold waters of the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. Unlike their movie star great white cousins, these guys are not flashy. They move at less than 2 kilometers per hour, the slowest known swim speed and tail beat frequency of any large fish. But this isn't laziness. It's crucial to their survival, even though they can sneak up on seals and have been found with polar bear remains in their stomach. Food doesn't come easy or often. They can go without food for several weeks, potentially even months, depending on the size of their last meal. But moving slowly helps conserve energy in a place where calories are rare.
To survive in a place with no sunlight and little food, you have to be very energetically efficient. One of the key factors is metabolic scaling, the idea that as animals get larger, they use energy more efficiently. So even though the Greenland shark is massive, it needs surprisingly little energy to live. But on the flip side, it also has very little to use. So they're extremely slow and grow less than a centimeter a year, sometimes over centuries.
Radiocarbon dating has shown the existence of 400-year-old Greenland sharks, making them the longest living vertebrates in the world. There are Greenland sharks that are alive today that were already swimming around England when Shakespeare was still alive.
Their slow growth also means it takes a long time to become sexually mature. In the Greenland shark's case, it's around 150 years of age. A Greenland shark could have been born the same day as Winston Churchill, and is only becoming sexually mature today.
But that kind of slow, steady growth over a very long lifespan isn't unique to the Greenland shark.
And maybe even weirder, it doesn't stop. Myself and you, unless you're a deep-sea giant, of course, grow to a certain height and then stop growing. But a lot of deep-sea species don't have that hard limit. As long as they're getting food and not getting eaten, they'll just keep growing. And when you combine that with the fact that these animals often live for a very long time, you get some really strange, humongous beasts with long lives and even longer legs.
Really long legs. The Japanese spider crab holds the title for largest arthropod on Earth, with a leg span that can stretch up to 4 meters across, or about as big as a sedan. And yet, its body is surprisingly modest, not much bigger than a football. These towering crabs haunt the deep waters off the coast of Japan. And despite their terrifying size, they're not predators. Instead, they prefer the chill lifestyle of a scavenger, eating whatever happens to fall to the bottom of the ocean. Aw, slender crab's kinda nice.
Predation requires a lot of energy, and few animals in the deep sea can afford to pay that price. This has caused low predation pressure, which has led to gigantism. When nothing's chasing you and you've got centuries to kill, there's room to grow big, slow, and strange.
The spider crab isn't the only deep-sea creature taking advantage of all that space and safety. Meet another bottom dweller built for the long haul, the giant isopod. It's a relative of the common roly-poly pillbug, but these armored crustaceans can grow to the size of a French bulldog. They live from around 200 to 2,000 meters below the surface, where they vacuum clean the bottom of the ocean. Almost anything is edible to them. Whale fall, fish carcasses, even scraps from shipwrecks. It's all delicious to them.
Like other deep-sea giants, their bulk likely evolved in response to cold temperatures, limited food, and a low predator environment. The kind of setting where getting big and staying still actually pays off.
They're so good at conserving energy, one captive isopod famously went over 5 years without eating, the longest recorded fast by any animal in captivity. It's the deep-sea version of bulking season. Store energy, move slowly, and wait out the next meal, even if it takes months or years to arrive.
So far, we've looked at animals that got big by taking it slow, conserving energy, playing the long game, and having no predators. But not every deep-sea giant is built for a quiet life in the dark. Some got massive in part because of an evolutionary arms race with a predator.
Enter the giant squid, with tentacles as long as a school bus and eyes the size of dinner plates. The giant squid is a real contender as one of the most terrifying ocean creatures of all time. Most common squid species max out at just a few dozen centimeters, barely the length of your forearm, making this giant squid one of the most extreme examples of deep-sea gigantism ever recorded. Its massive size is likely the result of its battles with the largest toothed predator on Earth, the sperm whale. What, did you think I was going to say T-Rex? Gotcha. While no one's ever filmed a full-on squid-whale showdown, the evidence is etched on the whales themselves, in the form of sucker scars on their heads and squid beaks in the whale stomachs. Over time, natural selection likely favored squid that were large enough to escape, strong enough to fight back, or at the very least, harder to swallow.
This is an example of size evolving in response to predation pressure, when the pressure to avoid being eaten leads to an increase in body size. Combine that with the other forces we've seen, cold temperatures, slow metabolisms, low light environments, and you have a creature that's grown massive by design. The deep-sea conditions simply demanded it.
There is another often overlooked factor that creates giants: oxygen availability. In some parts of the deep sea, oxygen levels drop dramatically. Oxygen minimum zones, usually found between 200 and 1,000 meters deep, are regions of the ocean with so little oxygen that most marine life cannot survive there. These midwater zones can have even less oxygen than deeper parts of the ocean.
But the real fun stuff starts to happen after 1,000 meters deep. This is an area with little life, little death, and little decay. Fewer rotten things means more oxygen, and deep ocean currents bring additional oxygen to the depths of the sea. Animals that can live here naturally get bigger than animals that have lower oxygen available.
Such is the case of the supergiant amphipod. Let's back it up a bit. If you've never heard of amphipods, all you need to know is that they're crustaceans that look like flat shrimp. Most amphipods are the size of your fingernail, but the supergiant amphi can grow up to 35 centimeters long, about the size of a house cat. These ghostly crustaceans can live at depths of over 6,000 meters. Their gill structure helps them extract oxygen more efficiently than their shallow water cousins. That extra oxygen intake powers a bigger body. A body that's perfectly suited for drifting through the pressure-packed dark, scavenging whatever it can. It's a reminder that in the deep, even the tiniest creatures can take a giant leap if evolution hands them the right tools.
These are just some of the most well-known deep-sea giants. There are several other giants that we're just beginning to understand.
Dumbo octopus are beautiful, hilarious, and look like cartoony octopus ghosts. But they're also larger than the average human being. Their adorable ear-like fins help them hover around while spending almost no energy. Giant polychaete worms, like the bobbit worm, can get to nearly 3 meters long and get energy from symbiotic bacteria. And siphonophores, though technically not an individual animal but colonies of animals, can be up to 40 meters long. These ones for sure deserve their own episode, so we'll talk about them at length another time.
At the bottom of the ocean, life slows down and stretches out. And somehow, against crushing pressure, freezing temperatures, and total darkness, life, finds a way.
Understanding these animals can help us understand life as a whole. For example, Studying giant amphipods has led to the discovery of unique molecules that protect cells under extreme pressure and stress. And these molecules may one day help prevent the protein clumps seen in diseases like Alzheimer's.
And the best part is that we've barely scratched the surface. More than 80% of the deep ocean remains unexplored, which means there might be other huge alien-like creatures down there just waiting to be discovered. And Godzilla. Squids are the largest invertebrates in the world. There are hundreds of millions of them in the ocean, and yet we almost never see them. But why? What evolutionary tools do they have that make them so successful? And how have they managed to avoid us for thousands of years? These are the enigmatic giant squids. The kraken, the sea monk, the great sea serpent, and the great calamari are some of the names given to these enormous ocean creatures. We've been talking about these creatures for as long as sailors have been exploring the oceans, and yet for the vast majority of human existence, nobody had ever seen one alive.
Because we didn't know any better, we assumed them to be monsters and gave them fantastical names like the Scylla in Greek mythology, the Lusca of the Caribbean, and of course, the Kraken of Norse mythology.
Before modern times, all we had was mariners' tales and dead specimens found in the stomachs of whales or washed ashore on the beach. Most of the giant decapods found in Europe were likely Architeuthis dux, which is simply known as the giant squid. But there are two other enormous species that we should mention whenever we talk about the largest invertebrates in the world: the colossal squid and the bigfin squid. But let's focus on the one that's fascinated seamen and beachgoers all over the world for millennia: the giant squid. Giant squids are absolutely massive. If you include the length of their tentacles, they can be up to 12 meters long and weigh over 250 kilograms. Their eyes, along with those of the colossal squid, are the largest in the animal kingdom at just under 30 centimeters in diameter. For context, a swordfish, which weighs the same as the giant squid and lives in similar habitats, has eyes about 10 centimeters wide in diameter, and human eyes are 2.4 centimeters wide on average. That is just way too much squid. A large female can be twice as long as a great white shark, and likely larger than a megalodon ever got. They're also full-time carnivores, so there's no need to look for monsters in mythology books. Giants still roam the earth and the sea, and they roam a huge part of the world, having been found in temperate waters from Russia to Tasmania. They seem to not love the tropical seas, but they have been spotted in vacation hotspots like Florida and Hawaii. Wherever they go, they're always looking for their next meal. Giant squid catch their meals with two enormous tentacles, which can be up to 7 meters long, easily big enough to wrap them around ancient medieval fishing boats, which is where the legends probably come from. The tentacles are lined with dozens of hard, serrated suction cups controlled by muscles beneath them. These suckers dig into the prey's flesh and apply suction forces of up to 100 pounds per square inch. So in theory, they only need a couple of suckers to lift you. That's more than enough force to secure and hold their prey in place, while the squid rips it apart with its giant parrot-like beak. Their beak is bigger than your fist, and is only the first step of their meat processing operation. Inside their mouth, they have rasps that work as flesh graters. Once a living being goes in there, the V-shaped stream of light across the closing beak is the last thing it sees. These hunting tools also work as their only self-defense against their main predators, whales. But how do noodly appendages and an oversized parrot beak translate to battle with some of the largest animals to ever live? Well, not great. Even more than the beaches where they sometimes wash ashore, the stomach of a sperm whale is the most likely place you'll ever find a giant squid. These whales often have scars from the giant squid suckers. Their skin bears the marks of countless battles with these massive cephalopods. But size is usually the deciding factor, and whales are the ocean's heavyweight champions. Sperm whales are so well adapted to eating giant squids that their intestines produce a wax called ambergris to wrap squid beaks and protect their organs as these biological shears go through their digestive system. These waxy substances have a pungent, salty smell. They smell like they came out of a whale's butt. And yet, they're used in the perfume industry, and large blocks of it can go for over $1 million. And of course, because of this, there are professional ambergris hunters, in case you're thinking of a career change. So many giant squids are found inside sperm whale bellies. Scientists estimate that these marine mammals eat up to 100 million of them a year. These remains have provided scientists with most of the information we know about giant squids. The rest come from the beached squids, but these animals rot very quickly, and by the time they land on a beach, they've likely already been dead for a few days. So weirdly, the partially digested remains inside whales' stomachs are often more complete. There's also the live squids that people have been reporting for centuries. Giant squids maintain buoyancy through ammonium chloride in their system, and when they die, they float up to the surface, unlike most cephalopods. And this chemical also makes them taste like salty licorice, which is pretty gnarly. Sometimes, giant squids float up before they die, usually when they're very old, sick, or injured. And often, in this disoriented state, is when they reach their tentacles into boats. It's a very small window before it dies and rots, but it tracks with how giant squids live their life. They reach sexual maturity at just about 3 years of age, and have a life expectancy of just 5 years. That's it! They get that big in just 5 years. For comparison's sake, great white sharks become sexually mature at 20 years of age and live as long as an average human being. On top of that, females have been found with over 1 million eggs yet to be released. So they reproduce young and at a massive scale. This short generation length helps them adapt quickly to environmental changes and replenish populations year after year. And yet, despite their huge numbers, we almost never see them. This started changing at the start of the century. In 2002, the first picture of a confirmed live giant squid was taken in Japan. The cephalopod had gotten stranded on a shallow bay. The locals tried to secure it, but it died the next day. 2 years later, a baited camera caught a glimpse of a giant squid using its tentacles to grasp the bait ball. Since then, improvements in camera technology and an increased accessibility to submarines has led to videos like these. This was taken by NOAA in 2019. From a wall of darkness, you see a bouquet of arms approaching the camera. The squid examines it with its tentacles, and after realizing there's not much food to be had, it disappears into the bottom of the ocean. Videos keep popping up every once in a while, showing us the power and majesty of giant squids. But, mighty as they are, they only play second fiddle to the colossal squid. Colossal squids can be up to 700 kilograms, over twice as big as a giant squid. Even though their tentacles aren't as long as the giant squids, their eyes are slightly larger. In theory, they should be as famous as their cousins, but 2 reasons work against their popularity. They only live around Antarctica, and they seem to live at even deeper levels than the giant squid. Lastly, we have the big fin squid. In a family of alien-looking creatures, these are the weirdos of the bunch, and I know that's saying a lot. They're slightly smaller than the other 2 leviathans we mentioned earlier, but still get to lengths of up to 8 meters. They're so ghostly and ethereal that they only weigh 2 kilograms. Their arms seem to bend at elbows into noodle-like appendages that drift behind the animal. They've only been seen a couple of times, but one of them gave us one of the greatest squid observations of all time. In 2019, NOAA filmed one alive. It was about 3.5 meters long, and it was 750 meters deep. You can see its long arms, see-through mantle, and giant eyes. And despite its size, it looked so fragile and tender.
Oh gosh. Look how cool.
No, it's just so...
It's a big fin squid,
it's
maybe?
ghostly.
Magnapina? Magna. Oh man, look at him.
And there you have it, the fantastic world of giant squids. And the coolest thing is that we keep learning more and more about them. Next time we make a video about these gigantic creatures, there will be a whole new batch of discoveries about them.
A giant silver ribbon of a fish is said to be a prophet of doom. In Japanese folklore, they're messengers from the gods, telling beach dwellers a simple message: run for your lives. They were seen in large numbers before the 2011 tsunami, and we're starting to see them again. What message do they bring this time? This is the Oarfish.
Oarfish are showing up on beaches all over the world. Should we be taking this as a sign of the end of times? Hopefully not. Let's take a look into what makes this fish such a spooky sight.
The Oarfish is the longest bony fish in the world. Full-grown adults get to about 8 meters long on average, but there are confirmed sightings of 11-meter-long individuals. That's about 3 great white sharks long. There are also unconfirmed reports of Oarfish 17 meters long, or about 5 great white sharks.
If you somehow managed to teach an oarfish to walk on land on its anal fins, it would be taller than a giraffe.
Or about as tall as this palm tree. Just to further illustrate how massive they are, take a look at this 5-meter-long fishy caught in Chile. Now, imagine one almost twice as long as this. That's how big they get. Despite being skinny enough that seafarers mistook them for mythical giant sea serpents, oarfish can be close to 300 kilos, or about the same as a polar bear.
So they're thin, long, and spooky, and are really just the fish version of Slender Man. Slender fish? Yeah.
It's really a ridiculously huge fish. But we really don't hear much about them because they're deep-water fish that only come up to the surface to die, or washed ashore already dead. It also helps that they have absolutely no interest in us. Despite their freaky size, they have a tiny mouth, optimized to eat krill and plankton.
Having said that, if you were scuba diving and one of these slender fish popped up out of nowhere, you'd be justified in being scared witless. They look ominous and less cartoony than other deep-water weirdos.
They have an elegant, ribbon-like body with iridescent silvery skin, a crimson-red dorsal fin, 400 fin rays across its body, and a prickly red faux hawk crown on its head. It's an imposing body plan that has earned the slenderfish the nickname the King of Herrings. And their genus, of which they're the only members, is called Regalicus, due to their regal aura. And some scientists have reported oarfish giving electric shocks when touched.
They look like they could be Poseidon's pets. But anyway, you came here to find out if they're really prophets of doom. And the answer is obviously, sometimes.
Oarfish live in waters up to 1,000 meters, as far as we know. They're not great swimmers due to their tiny, underdeveloped, royalty-like muscles. They also lack swim bladders to control their buoyancy. This makes them very susceptible to sea currents, which is sometimes caused by seismic activity. When the sea is angry, the current might push older, weaker, and sick individuals into shallower water, and eventually to the beach.
So if you've never seen this fish before, and suddenly a massive one washes up on your local beach, and then soon after an earthquake happens, you might be right in assuming that there's correlation, but there really isn't any causation.
This happened in Japan prior to the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. People started reporting sightings of this fish as early as 2009. About 20 oarfish were spotted before the earthquake, which reinforced the locals' belief that this was a soothsayer of destruction. This is a long-held belief, and they're even called the messengers from the sea god's palace.
Hey, see? Everyone thinks that they're regal to the point of being almost supernatural.
In 2024, oarfish were in the news a lot because 3 of them washed up on the shores of California. The Golden State lies next to the San Andreas Fault, which is part of the Ring of Fire, a huge belt where 90% of the world's earthquakes happen. So, yes, there was a clustering of oarfish sightings, and they coincidentally happened in an area of high seismic activity. But just to be super clear, this is a coincidence, unrelated to the tragic wildfires and other natural disasters. There are many possible reasons why we've seen so many oarfish recently. Water pollution, changes in temperature, noise pollution from sonars, a decrease in prey availability, diseases, or simply natural causes are factors that might lead to more oarfish dying in a certain area.
Also, the fact that almost everyone has a camera in their pocket these days makes it seem like there's been more sightings than there were in the past. Whereas before, a fisherman might have seen one overboard and thought to himself, "Oh, weird, a thunderfish," and never told anyone about it.
The mysteriousness of this fish is amplified by the fact that we almost never see them alive. They live too deep for us to dive and see them in person, and they're most commonly seen as bycatch in fishing nets. But submarines are getting more accessible, and Japanese and American scientists have managed to see them live, swimming weirdly in hypnotic, undulating motions, with their heads pointing up in what they describe as vertical swimming.
DNA studies have given us extra insight into their biology. Even though they were once called the king of herrings, they're actually land promoters.
That means that they're more closely related to ribbonfish and crestfish, which makes sense. But surprisingly, also to mola mola. Fish family trees are weird. But though oarfish are Luigi to mola mola's Mario, the resemblance becomes more obvious when you take behavior into account. They're both slow-moving fish that eat very small prey. They don't chase anything, and are mostly unbothered by the whole obsession humans have for them. The doomfish are also important markers of the health of their ecosystems. Deep-sea habitats are often overlooked because we can't see them, but overfishing and contamination are leading to a sharp decline in population numbers. Thankfully, as technology advances, we're learning more and more about these amazing creatures.
They might be the stuff of legends, but oarfish are real, and they're some of the most incredible creatures in the ocean. If you happen to see one, please take lots of photos and videos. Citizen science can play a huge role in their conservation. Imagine, you could be the person who gives us amazing insights into the biology of the oarfish. Don't let their cuteness fool you. Beyond their adorable frolicking among the waves, which has made us fall in love with them since times immemorial, there's a ruthless world. The life of a dolphin is dangerous and violent, and often its worst enemy is another member of its species. This is the dark side of dolphins. The hunting of dolphins is immoral, and whoever willingly devises destruction for dolphins can no more draw nigh the gods as a welcome sacrificer, nor touch their altars with clean hands. Ancient Greek poet Oppian might have gone a bit over the top when he described how revered dolphins are to us humans. But even for humans today, dolphins have a special place among the more sentient animals. In ancient Greece, dolphins were depicted as people rescuers, sharing many positive human traits, like friendship, sociability, goodwill, and playfulness. Over the centuries, as we've studied them more closely, we've discovered that dolphins also share our less desirable human traits, like individualism and even violence. Dolphins comprise 36 species that can be found all around the planet. Like humans, dolphins have complex social systems and are highly individualistic. This sense of me first, as we know ourselves, can sometimes result in a lot of sketchy behavior. Dolphins are apex predators that hunt both for necessity and fun. Their strategies for swarming and gobbling up their prey are well documented. From creating mud clouds in the water to confuse prey, to bum-rushing fish onto shore and snapping them up on the sand. We are always discovering new ways that dolphins have found to secure their snacks. What is more surprising is when we uncover dolphins harming or even killing for sport. Bottlenose dolphins have been seen killing the significantly smaller harbor porpoise. The scientists studying this behavior have yet to determine the why behind it, but it seems that competition for resources isn't one of the reasons, as there isn't much overlap in the diet of these two species. More likely, these dolphins are maiming and killing porpoises to maintain their fighting skills, or much more sinisterly, just because it's fun. And porpoises aren't the only species that dolphins snag for their entertainment. Dolphins have been known to use turtles, pufferfish, and octopuses as living toys. They've even been observed using pufferfish to get a little bit high. When stressed, pufferfish release a neurotoxin powerful enough to kill. But when used sparingly, it can make dolphins pleasantly blissed out. Dolphins have even been observed passing the puffer around a group to get high together, and staring at their own reflections in the water's surface above. While they may be vibing during recreational time, when it comes to reproduction, dolphins aren't quite so relaxed. Sex and aggression in dolphin society often go hand in hand, and male dolphins are especially hostile in their interactions with females. In a behavior called herding, a group of 2 to 3 males are known to surround a female who is unwilling to mate, capture her, and prevent her from mating with anyone else. This imprisonment can go on for weeks at a time. All the while, they're trying to coerce her into being receptive to their advances. This is a particularly brutal reproductive strategy to ensure that the male who successfully mates with her will carry on his line. But females also have their own strategies to avoid becoming impregnated by a male they don't like. Female bottlenose dolphins have evolved complex spiral-shaped vaginas, with folds leading to dead ends. If a male forces himself upon her, she can rotate her body, causing him to spill his seed in the wrong direction. She can then swim off to mate with a male she picks herself. Sex among dolphins isn't always so violent, thankfully. Australian humpback dolphins have been seen courting females by bringing them enormous sea sponges, all while singing and dancing. These visual and auditory displays, along with the gift of a hefty sponge, could be meant to convince the female that he would be a strong and virile partner. The less romantic interpretation is that he's showing off just how strong he is, as a display of dominance to coerce her into mating. And now we're back at violence, which I guess is never far from the surface with dolphins. Remember those murdered porpoises? They were killed at the height of the breeding season, when testosterone in male dolphins is at its peak, and their most ferocious tendencies are on display. During this time, dolphins have even been known to have the blood of their own brethren on their flippers. Infanticide happens among dolphins when males kill the young of a female they didn't mate with. This reproductive strategy ensures that the female will become fertile again in a few months, quickly opening up the possibility of a successful pairing for that male. In 2009, a scientist in Scotland observed an attempted infanticide when a male charged into a mixed group of bottlenose dolphins, grabbing a newborn calf and attempting to kill it. The mother and others were able to pull the baby away, but it was found 8 months later, beached with serious spinal injuries. These kinds of aggressive attacks against newborns may explain why spinal deformities are common in that dolphin population. When it comes to dolphin sexual aggression, even other species aren't safe. Not even humans. There have been countless reports of male dolphins trying to use humans to scratch a biological itch.
One coastal town in France even introduced a swimming ban in response to a lonely dolphin named Zafar that started harassing swimmers. Much like us humans, touch is an important part of bonding and communication in dolphin society. Dolphins will often touch each other's flippers or brush up against each other as they swim alongside. The need to touch sexually is also part of reinforcing bonds among dolphins, even between same-sex individuals. The fact that Zafar was an outcast from dolphin society was likely a contributing factor to him seeking contact, sexual and otherwise, from the humans who were drawn to his gregarious nature. While dolphins may engage in some seriously sketchy behavior according to us, hyperbole aside, they can't be viewed through a human moral lens. Instead, we could use these complex creatures as a mirror to hold up to ourselves in an effort to examine our own darker sides. This aquatic wonder can be best described as completely unbothered. It takes its time, gliding leisurely through the waves and occasionally even sunbathing on the surface. Predators can tear chunks out of it, and it just keeps on keeping on. It doesn't even have a bone to pick with the fact that its status as biggest bony fish has been recently toppled by a close relative. This is the sunfish. The ocean sunfish, otherwise known as the mola mola, is the second largest bony fish in the seas. But coming in second doesn't mean that the species isn't preposterously massive. Sunfishes can easily reach a ton in weight, but the heaviest on record was over 2 tons and was an almost perfect circle at 3.3 meters in diameter. Yup, it's round as a silver dollar, but about 100 times bigger, as heavy as a large giraffe. Until recently, the sunfish was believed to be the absolute biggest bony fish in the world. That record was upset by the discovery of a specimen of Mola alexandrini, also known as the bumphead sunfish, which weighed more than 2,700 kilograms. Along with ocean sunfish, this species is one of the 5 extant species of the Mollidae family. It makes sense that the word mola comes from the Latin for millstone, which perfectly describes these mega-heavy, disc-like fish. Despite looking like a bunch of ancient artifacts, this group is actually among the youngest in the ocean. They made their grand appearance in the seas about 50 million years later than most other modern fish. Sunfish are known for their iconic derpy appearance. They have bulging heads, big, vacant eyes, and 4 beak-like teeth that can't quite meet, giving them the look of a forever mouth breather. But the teeth that really matter for the sunfish are in their pharyngeal jaws, located in their throats. Pharyngeal teeth have evolved independently in many species of bony fish and are used for food capture and separating wanted from unwanted food. In the case of the sunfish, their pharyngeal teeth are used to trap and swallow the jellyfish that make up a large portion of their diet. Whatever particles the sunfish doesn't want to eat are then jetted out of its mouth. It can also use this jet force to defend itself from predators and even propel itself to make a super slow escape. Being large doesn't always mean you're slow in the animal kingdom. If you don't believe me, just try and outrun a hippo. But in the case of this underwater giant, the sunfish's enormous size does really make it seem like it's swimming through molasses. Its top speed is a breakneck 3 kilometers an hour. Unlike other fish, that have tails formed from the caudal fin that acts like a propeller to push the fish through the water, sunfish have a pseudotail that steers more like a rudder. Called the clavus, this pseudotail doesn't grow alongside the rest of the fish, which gives the sunfish its round shape. To propel itself through the water, the sunfish flaps its exaggerated back and belly fins like wings. This is similar to the flapping motion of these same fins in its cousins, the puffer and porcupine fish. Sunfish can be found lolling about the globe in tropical and temperate waters, though they can tolerate temperatures as low as 2 degrees Celsius. So in theory, they could be anywhere, other than the Arctic and Antarctic oceans. If they get chilly, sunfish simply float to the surface, lay on their sides, and soak up some rays. If you didn't pick up on it by now, that's why they are nicknamed sunfish. Laying on their sides on the surface actually serves more than one purpose. Their big, slimy bodies can be home to over 40 types of parasites. So by floating on the surface, they invite seabirds to snack on the creepy crawlies that cover their skin. To prevent their eyes from being plucked out by indiscriminate seagulls, the sunfish is equipped with a specialized muscle that allows them to pull their eyes deep inside their sockets. Hey everyone, we have exciting news! We're thrilled to announce the release of Animalogic's very first book, Strange Creatures. This book dives into the most incredible animals we've ever featured on the show, with each chapter packed with my illustrations and stunning full-color images. It's a fun and engaging way to learn about the animal kingdom, and a perfect tool to spark kids' interest in science. Each chapter breaks down an animal's biology, behavior, and all the coolest facts you need to know about these fascinating creatures. Animalogic's Strange Creatures is a must-have addition to your own library, or the perfect gift for an animal lover this upcoming holiday season. Click the link in the description to check it out, and if you can, order a copy. It would mean the world. Thank you so much, and I hope that you love the book. When being groomed by overzealous seabirds, some of the flesh will inevitably come away with the parasite. But that doesn't seem to bother the sunfish too much at all. Apparently, they aren't even too fussed when predators take a bigger bite either. 'Tis but a scratch. Their large size and very thick skin keeps most would-be predators at bay. But sunfish are still occasionally preyed upon by sharks, orcas, and sea lions. When they tire of their twisted little games, the sea lions will abandon the sunfish to sink to the bottom and die. Mammals, why are we always such jerks? It may come as no surprise that one of the greatest threats to adult sunfish is another mammal, Homo sapiens. Boat propellers and rudders can easily kill a floating mola, and drift gill nets can damage their skin and protective mucus layer and fill their gills with air. Plastic bags, too, are especially dangerous for molas because the floating bag can be mistaken for a delicious jellyfish. Once ingested, the bag can easily choke the mola or clog its stomach, preventing it from being able to eat. Despite the fact that these surface-loving giants are easy to spot, the research on sunfish isn't actually that extensive. We don't know, for example, how fast they grow, or how long they live in the wild. Because they live out in the vast open ocean, we're also still trying to grasp the size of their populations around the world, and even where they spawn. We do know that females will lay up to 300 million eggs every breeding season. The babies start their lives as tiny larvae less than half a centimeter in size. But how they manage to survive to the behemoths we find gliding through the ocean is still an alluring mystery. Orcas have been attacking sailboats off the coast of Spain and Portugal.
Alright, check out these fellas come for a look. Woo, there's a whole pot of them. Whoa! Holy hit the boat!
This is a new behavior that was first described in 2020, but has spread across different orca groups. Thankfully, there haven't been any casualties, and usually the whales leave soon after the attack. They don't try to eat people. To some people, orcas seem to be doing these attacks as a game. Others see it as revenge, and others see it as just plain old-fashioned boredom. But the orcas won't tell us what their deal is. So let's take a look at these attacks and see if we can figure it out. The orca incidents are one of the most interesting animal stories of the year. So even though we don't do news, we wanted to give you a rundown on what's going on.
Orcas, or killer whales have been doing something really weird.
Orcas off the coast of Spain and Portugal have been body slamming boats, chewing off their rudders.
They're attacking boats.
Boats have been sunk or damaged.
A whale named Gladys off the coast of Spain has been teaching other whales to attack boats.
It's just the latest in a number of orca attacks in the area.
But maybe they should be renamed a gang or a troop or an army.
Raising questions about why
orcas are attacking
and even sometimes sinking boats.
Are they being playful or are they seeking revenge?
All the orca attacks in the news have happened off the coast of Spain and Portugal. The local orca subpopulation, known as Iberian orcas, is only about 40 whales.
Several of these interactions seem to implicate one particular whale, a large female named White Gladys. Marine biologists started reporting on incidents in 2020, with White Gladys at the forefront of those interactions.
Over 700 interactions have been reported since then, mostly on sailboats and catamarans. The strategy seems to be to ram or bite the rudder off boats. In about 20% of the cases, the damage is bad enough that it makes the boats unable to sail on their own.
Nah, this one's circling here. Look at the size of that monster.
In 3 cases involving smaller sailboats, the whales have caused them to capsize.
Before you get scared about potential whale war, you should know that the whales do not attack people in the water, and these incidents have only been reported here. But there is something about this group that has turned them into living attack submarines.
Much like in humans, new behaviors and trends are started by younger members of the group. White Gladys is one of the oldest of the whales known to attack boats, and some of the juveniles seem to be copying her. It's possible that she had a traumatic event with a boat that made her likely to see boats in a negative light.
Most whales in this subpopulation have scars, either from being struck by boats or getting tangled in fishing nets.
Orcas often approach longline fisheries to take hooked tuna. This is an effortless way to get food, but sometimes it leads to entanglements with fishing lines and nets that cause deep cuts and sometimes amputations.
So, it's been suggested that this happened to White Gladys, and ever since, she started attacking boats, and influenced young whales in her pod to do the same.
But it also could be a random behavior, like the 1987 orca fad of wearing dead salmon as a hat. Nobody knows how it started, why they did it, or how it ended. But soon after, the behavior stopped. Unfortunately for people who love seeing cute animals wear hats.
A third option is that it's all basically just a game, and the orcas are having fun taking a chunk off the boat that looks like a fin. They could do a whole lot more damage if they wanted to, but the fact that they're so measured and precise when they go after those rudders suggests that they're probably not trying to destroy the boats on purpose.
The fact of the matter is that we don't know, and we hope that it's just a passing fad. Despite how scary it is for people on boats to be rammed by a whale, this behavior is even more dangerous for the orcas. They can get hurt or get attacked back by sailors. And since this is an already critically endangered population of about 40 whales, any deaths or even injuries can put a lot of strain on the pod.
Scientists from groups like Orca Iberica are using GPS tags and citizen science reports to create up-to-date risk maps, warning sailors about the presence of whales. But if you end up encountering an orca, they recommend letting go of the wheel, which seems to make the whales lose interest sometimes.
This is especially important if you have a sailboat under 15 meters, the most common type of boat in these orca interactions, or have a spade rudder, the orca's favorite rudder to detach. But we also have to say that this area is very busy, with thousands of ships traveling along the coast every day. Only a few of them ever see orcas. A small proportion of them have interactions with whales, and an even smaller number suffer any damage. And just 3 out of millions of boats since 2020 have capsized.
So of course, be careful, follow recommendations, and respect the whales. But don't let media panic scare you into fearing orcas.
Alright, check out these fellas come for a look. Woo, there's a whole pot of them. Whoa! Oh, nearly hit the boat.
There is a possibility that more whales will learn this behavior, but since there are so few Iberian orcas and their range is limited, this is pretty unlikely.
Recently, a pod of about 30 orcas showed up in Monterey Bay, California, sparking speculation that the same type of interactions could happen in North America. But don't worry about that. Those are totally different populations that never interact with each other.
So if you live in North America, relax, try and go see the whales. And if you do spot some weird behavior, try and record and share the video. Because the more we can learn about these amazing whales, the more that we can do to prevent these negative interactions. We're in the Victoria Harbour and we just got all equipped to stay warm and dry. Because we're heading out into the ocean and we're gonna go look for some marine life. I'm so excited because ideally we might get to see my first favorite animal. It's the orca. They're very, very dear to my heart, and if we see some, I might overreact a little. I'm very excited about this. Are you guys excited?
Yeah.
I'm excited. We might just run into a pod of whales, and if we do, I might do a little bit of screaming. We heard this morning that a pod of orcas was heading up this way from Nanaimo, so we're really hoping that maybe this morning we'll get a chance to see them. I don't want to get too excited, but we just saw a bunch of big blows in front of us, and it might be orcas. It might be orcas. Let's go see. Oh, there's one right there!
Today we're talking about going down, to the depths of the ocean floor, of course, to one of the largest and least understood habitats in the universe. Literally, 100% of the surface of Mars has been mapped, while only an estimated 20% of the ocean's floor has been mapped, and only 5% has been explored. That despite the fact that the oceans cover 71% of the Earth's surface. That's scary.
Sometimes we're afraid of big things, and sometimes we're afraid of very little ones. Remember how afraid Keith Hogan was about learning to swim?
That's right. He was scared to go near the water.
Yes.
We have no idea what the heck is lurking in most of the deep ocean. But from what we've seen, we know the creatures down there are weird.
The deep ocean begins around 200 meters down in the twilight zone, below what's called the sunlight or the euphotic zone. Here, the light from the sun barely reaches, and the darkness comes on fast and hard as you descend. Once you hit 1,000 meters, there is no more sunlight left, and photosynthesis isn't possible.
3,000 meters underwater, so it's roughly 8.5 Empire State Buildings stacked end on end. That's how deep underwater we are. And I think the most abundant species is probably these small cream-colored Geodia sponges, these little ball sponges.
Plants that need the sun's energy to survive don't exist down here, which means that food is also more scarce. With no sunlight to warm the water, it's also cold as f***, with temperatures hovering above freezing at just 4 degrees Celsius.
Despite these inhospitable conditions, creatures who have adapted somehow manage to not only survive, but thrive in this dark, food-poor, cold, and high-pressure environment. That's pretty wild.
Now, this atmosphere of ours is often used as an example of lightness, lack of weight, but that isn't so.
Pressure is measured in atmospheres, or ATM. On land, we experience 1 ATM. For every 10 meters you go down underwater, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. So if you're 100 meters below the surface of the water, you're experiencing pressure 10 times of that on land.
Second, and still worse, the force exerted by the atmosphere on the surface of your body is of the order of 15 tons, all unknowing. You've been walking around under such a crushing load.
We experience this as a crushing feeling because we're gas-filled beings. We need air to breathe, and even our ears have pockets of air to help us hear. And I'm not even going to touch on the gas found in our digestive tracts.
Instantly, the gas is beginning to bubble. Very violently, in fact.
The difference between air-breathing creatures and those that dwell thousands of meters below is that they're made up of water, which can't be crushed by more water.
Just like the pressure of air all around our bodies isn't experienced as crushing, these creatures don't even notice the immense pressure that would kill any of us in an instant.
Bring them up to the surface, however, and the lack of pressure begins to cause them metabolic issues, as well as making them look absolutely ridiculous.
This is what a blobfish looks like at surface level, and this is what they're supposed to look like in their deep sea habitat.
This is part of the reason why it's so difficult to study these deep sea creatures, because we have to study them in their natural habitats, deep down below.
And that ain't easy. The running joke among researchers is that it's easier to get to space than it is to get to the bottom of the ocean. It's not a funny joke, but it's true.
The moon was seen by Galileo and by the other early astronomers to have strange dark areas upon it, and they assumed that these areas were covered with water and were like our oceans and seas.
Scientists have spent 10 times longer on the moon's surface than they have at the deepest known point of the ocean, which lies almost 11 kilometers below the surface.
There's a reason this point is called Challenger Deep.
Even the maps of Mars we've created are better than the ones we have of what lies at the bottom of our own oceans, by a wide margin.
Off into space. Man, that takes real teamwork.
So, just what kind of weirdos have we encountered in our limited exploration of the deepest oceans?
Let's set the scene by first taking a look at a formation of mostly glass sponges that deep-sea scientists have dubbed the Forest of the Weird. This is the kind of strangeness you can expect when you descend into the depths of the ocean.
Wow, it goes on and on, too.
Every time we do these dives, all I can think about is, this is the type of experience someone would have if they found, life on another planet. Everything's so alien to, at least for me, even though I've been doing it for 5 years, it's still like I'm on another planet.
Yeah, and it's definitely the same for me as well, Pilot, because even though I work on these sponges, a scene like this is just extraordinary.
So, first up is a real-life creature that has reached the heights of myth and legend, the giant squid.
Despite the fact that the largest specimen found was almost 18 meters long, these elusive giants are extremely hard to encounter in the deep. Most of what we know of them are from dead specimens that have floated up to the surface. They've only been seen alive in their natural deep-sea habitat a handful of times.
In addition to being the largest invertebrates on Earth, giant squid also have the largest eye of any creature on the planet, measuring 25 centimeters across. Because of these huge peepers, where other creatures would be sightless in the depths, giant squid can see just fine. You might not believe me, but this is also a squid. It's called a big fin squid, and there are only 3 known species that live all throughout the deep ocean.
These are the deepest dwelling squid we know of, and their long, draping arms, which are covered in tiny suckers, are thought to catch food as it floats by, or they drag along the seafloor to snatch up its snacks.
All of their arms and tentacles have this long spaghetti-like extension. It's really difficult to tell the arms from the tentacles, which is very unusual for a squid.
The longest big fin was recorded at 6.4 meters, or longer than a giraffe is tall. But when it comes to weird-looking creatures, nothing tops a jelly, who are common inhabitants of the very deep ocean.
Ladies and gentlemen, our subject for today's discussion is fish. And what a great variety there is. One of the strangest fish is the hydromedusan, or jellyfish. They come in 6 delicious colors: strawberry, raspberry, cherry, orange, lemon, and lime.
This hydromedusa jelly, belonging to the genus Crissata, looks like a holiday ornament. And this orange-sized comb jelly, part of a group of jellies known as ctenophores, also looks like it should be hanging from a festive tree.
They're named ctenophores because of their 8 rows of cilia structures called tens. Not only do the tens propel the jellyfish through the water and trap and consume their prey, they also reflect light, making them shimmer and shine in the bright lights of our remotely operated deep-sea vehicles.
Then we have the underwater pillbug on steroids, the giant isopod. You might want to look away.
This woodlice relative is usually about 30 centimeters long. They're believed to be found worldwide throughout the deep seas and are scavengers that clean up the sea floor.
Considering that most isopods that are found at these depths are smaller than a human thumbnail, these giant versions are true weirdos.
These are one of the most charismatic deep-sea animals that you can possibly find. To some people, they're really cute. To some people, they're the stuff of nightmares.
The deep-sea lizardfish, like a lot of deep ocean creatures, has a face made for a horror franchise. This killing machine has the honor of being one of the deepest living apex predators and features a flat head and a mouthful of curved and barbed teeth.
All that to say, they sound a lot scarier than they are, since they only reach a max size of 70 centimeters.
Chimeras, the distant ancient relative of sharks and rays, are also common predators of the deep. Their spooky appearance has led to them being referred to as ghost sharks, and they can grow to be 1.5 meter long specters that feed on crustaceans and mollusks.
Oreofish are true deep ocean weirdos who seem to defy the laws of fishiness by floating at odd angles near steep-sided seamounts.
Oreos, which is short for fish in the Oreostomatidae family, point themselves in the direction of the current, which increases their chances of snagging a snack that floats by and enables them to hold position near the safety of nearby shelter, all while conserving energy when not feeding.
Yep, just gonna go upside down, check you out. I really enjoy these Oreo fish. They kind of look like something out of a cartoon with their giant eyes and their big mouths. You know, these Oreo fish can be a bit territorial, so maybe this fish that really is checking us out here.
When it comes to deep-sea freakiness, nothing comes close to the anglerfish. Looks aside, these toothy beasts are some of the most cunning hunters of the deep. They use a luminescent fin ray to attract prey, the glow of which comes from symbiotic bacteria. Once a curious fish comes too close, it'll quickly be snapped up by the anglerfish. And if you thought the anglerfish was scary, here's what scares the anglerfish.
Now, anybody who hasn't a firm grip on his emotions had better not look anymore, for something's going to happen around here, and I don't mean maybe.
The Atlantic midshipman, which buries itself in the sea floor and uses a wait and ambush hunting strategy, will make a lunch of an anglerfish before it even knows what hit it. The dotted lines of luminous photophores that go down the sides of this fish are where it gets its strange common name. Sticking with the nautical theme, these photophores resemble the buttons down the coats of young naval officers, called midshipsmen.
But just because something's weird doesn't always mean it's scary. Some weird creatures are just straight up cute, like these depth-dwelling octos, which seem to be in some kind of unspoken cuteness competition.
First, there's the flapjack octopus, a member of a unique group called serrate octopuses, which have webbing between their arms. In the case of this little cutie, the webbing gives it that distinct pancake shape. In addition to making them even cuter, fins on either side of their heads are the primary way of getting around, as opposed to the jet propulsion method of other octopods.
Unlike other groups, serrate octopuses can't change their color or skin texture to camouflage themselves in their environment, nor do they have ink.
Finger-like projections on their arms help them locate yummy morsels, like worms and other small invertebrates on the seafloor. To stir up some snacks, the flapjack octopus will flap its arms to disturb the sediment on the bottom.
So without the ability to camouflage, how do these creatures avoid detection? In the deep ocean, they don't need camo, as they can hide in plain sight.
While they stand out to our eyes when we shine a light on their reddish-orange bodies, without the red wavelengths of visible light, these colors actually make them almost imperceptible to predators, like sharks, whales, fish, and fur seals in the dark of the deep ocean.
Well, let's call this fella names, too. He deserves to be sworn at. You old cephalopod, that's you. Octopus punctatus, accent on the punk.
Next up on the list of deep-sea octo-cuties, we have the so-dubbed Casper octopus. The ghostly appearance of this all-white octopus is what earned it its name.
What stands out about this short-armed octopus is that it was found at more than 4,000 meters below the surface. So far, the only octopuses we've ever observed this deep are finned octopuses of the Serrata suborder, like the flapjack.
So far, this one hasn't even been scientifically classified, since we only know it from images and not from specimens. Maybe someday we'll have a real binomial name for this deep-sea darling.
We can't talk about the deep's cutest octopuses without mentioning the Dubeau octopus, another group of serrate octopods that are seriously adorable. The Grimpoteuthis genus, of so far 17 species, is nicknamed Dubeau because of their large flapping fins, located above their eyes, that look like an elephant's ears. These cuties are assumed to live around the globe and have been observed as deep as 7,000 meters, making these the deepest dwelling mollusks that we've ever encountered.
Whether it's terrifying or adorable, the whole range of weirdness can be found deep down in our very own oceans. If this is just 5% of what we've discovered, imagine the weird that is lurking in the other 95%.
Basically, the world's life support system is dependent on the ocean, right? A lot of people don't realize that every other breath we take is because of the ocean. all these efforts are to really sort of shine a light on what a wonderful and amazing place the ocean is, including the deep sea, and bring that home. This is our home planet, and we need to understand what's out there.
Look out! It's a croc! It's a whale! Nope, it's a giant swimming lizard with a tail like a shark. This extinct leviathan has had scientists scratching their heads since the very beginnings of paleontology, when the controversial concept of extinction itself was just starting to gain acceptance. This is the Mosasaurus. Today, we're talking about the extinct Muse monster, Mosasaurus. Before it was fully classified, 18th century scientists thought this creature was a giant crocodile, a large-toothed whale, or a whale-like fish, before settling on what we know Mosasaurus to be today, a giant marine lizard. Mosasaurus was first found in the 1760s, when paleontology was just starting to become a field of study. It's been around so long that it was named before our modern standards of scientific nomenclature came into use. This led to Mosasaurus becoming a so-called catch-all or wastebasket taxon, with many different species being tossed in over the decades. Since 1822, over 50 species have been lumped into the Mosasaurus genus, and paleontologists are still trying to figure out what belongs and what doesn't. But when we say Mosasaurus today, we're usually referring to the species Mosasaurus hoffmanni. One of the largest specimens we have of Mosasaurus hoffmanni indicates it could have been about 17 meters long, or a little larger than a humpback whale.
Insane!
Oh my God. Jesus Christ.
Most of what we know about Mosasaurus hoffmanni comes from fossilized skulls. We know, for example, that it was one of the most advanced mosasaurs. Its jaws were highly adapted for powerful bites. Evidence of healed and broken jawbones indicates that they were particularly violent, either with their prey or during fights with rivals. So Mosasaurus definitely earned its spot as apex predator. Its large eye sockets and poorly developed olfactory organs show us that it was likely a surface swimmer, similar to today's crocodiles. The evidence we have from the geography of the time suggests that it lived in deep waters near the shore. Initial descriptions claimed that this reptile had a long, sleek body with a tapered tail. Although we don't have any fossilized evidence of Mosasaurus's tail, the preserved body outline of a smaller mosasaur suggests that they had a bi-lobed tail, which would have been more shark-like than reptilian. This is an example of convergent evolution, where unrelated organisms develop similar traits to adapt to their environments. A modern example would be the fingerprints of koalas and humans. We needed them to better grip tools, and koalas needed them to better climb the slippery bark of the eucalyptus tree. In this case, sharks and some mosasaurs, though unrelated, both evolved bi-lobed tails. So while we don't know for sure what the Mosasaurus tail looked like, at least we know that other members of its family evolved a tail that was better adapted to the life aquatic. The first Mosasaurus hoffmanni fossil was found way back in 1764 in a chalk quarry near the Meuse River in the Netherlands. The next was a more complete skull found in the same quarry in the 1780s. This second specimen became the holotype and was so significant and well known at the time that it was seized by the French Revolutionary Army in the Siege of Maastricht and carried off to Paris. It was here that in 1808, French naturalist Georges Cuvier, the father of paleontology, named the fossil Mosasaurus, which means lizard of the Meuse River. He noted that its jaws resembled that of a monitor lizard, and determined it was indeed a giant marine reptile unlike any living creature. At the time, Cuvier was trying to promote his theories about extinction, a concept that was completely new and extremely controversial.
The giant jaws of this marine lizard that was clearly no longer swimming up and down the Meuse River provided some hard evidence that extinction was in fact legit. Mosasaurs were a group of lizards that are secondarily aquatic. All land-dwelling animals evolved from a common sea-dwelling ancestor which crawled out of the water over 500 million years ago and began to diversify. In the case of secondarily aquatic animals, at some point in their evolution, their ancestors were living on land and then made their return to the water. We have lots of examples of secondarily aquatic animals today, like whales, which evolved from ancient land-dwelling mammals. We know they used to live on land because of their mammalian biology. They breathe air, nurse their young with milk, and inside their flippers are hand and finger bones. Mosasaur ancestors also ventured back into the waves during the late Cretaceous period, where they became the dominant marine reptile. Sea levels were much higher at the time, so Mosasaurus was able to spread to a number of locations throughout the world, with fossils so far having been found all over the planet from South Dakota to Turkey to the Netherlands. Until recently, one ongoing question about mosasaurs was whether or not they were covered in scales. This information is key to understanding just how well adapted they were to life in the water. The recent discovery of the fossilized impressions of the scales of Aplodosaurus, a member of the Mosasauridae family, is the first ever record of mosasaur skin we've found. The purpose of these scales was likely to reduce drag and help the Aplodosaurus glide through the water. Kind of like how the dimples of a golf ball help it whoosh through the air. Like many other giant reptile families, including dinosaurs, all mosasaurs fell victim to the asteroid-induced mass extinction event that happened 66 million years ago. Despite more than 250 years of search and study, there are still so many juicy secrets left to uncover about the Mosasaurus. Maybe one day we'll even get a good look at that elusive tail. The largest shark who ever lived. This leviathan struck terror in the hearts of mammals for millions of years. Their demise was abrupt and left a huge open niche in ocean ecosystems. Could a new beast assume the role of giant killer? This is the Megalodon. The Megalodon is one of the most fearsome predators of all time. If you think the great white shark is scary, this submarine carnivore will give you nightmares. Megalodon was massive, big enough to eat whales. Some estimates put them at around 18 meters, though there's some debate about that because all we have left of them is their teeth. Like all sharks, Megalodon's skeleton was made of cartilage, which doesn't fossilize. Luckily, their teeth were made of calcium phosphate minerals, which do fossilize. So we have plenty of huge teeth to get an idea of Megalodon's monstrous size. Their teeth are the largest of any shark ever found. And they're really, really, really big. A mature great white shark's teeth are up to 7 centimeters. Megalodon's larger known teeth are over 20 centimeters long. Just look at how tiny great white's teeth look next to them. Megalodon made the great white shark seem like the meh white shark. And it did for a long time. Megalodon appeared in the fossil record around 20 million years ago, a new time for Earth where grasslands and kelp forests had just developed, and new species were thriving. From then, they gradually got larger, reaching their maximum size right before extinction, around 3 million years ago. During their reign, there was no safe haven in the ocean, especially if you're fat and delicious. Megalodon, like their extant cousins, ate fatty marine mammals, which, to be fair, weren't as massive as they are now. We know of this shark's cetacean diet because scientists have found whale bones with shark tooth marks that could only have been made by a megalodon. One of those mammalian snacks was Piscobalaena, which was about 5 meters long. Not nearly as large as modern baleen whales, but just slightly smaller than orcas.
That's still nothing to scoff at. Killing something that big required gigantic jaws and a powerful bite.
Their mouth could be up to 3 meters wide, enough to eat you and a puma whole at the same time. Not that they would have liked you, you're probably too bony compared to their favorite snacks. Their killing strategy seemed to have been ambushing whales from below and biting off a big chunk of their guts. The whale would be dead before they even knew what bit them.
With a body made for killing giants, baby megalodons were under a lot of pressure to grow up quickly.
Studies done at the fossil sites of megalodon nurseries show that megalodon were born about 2 meters long, about the size of a sea lion, and could have reached their full size at just 25 years of age. It's unclear what they ate in their youth, but like most shark species, the competition was likely intense, and few would reach their full size. Cannibalism is relatively common in sharks, and for portions of their life, their siblings would have been the most available source of food.
It's a dangerous business being a shark, and unfortunately for this species, their chapter in the Book of Life came to an end pretty abruptly.
For such a formidable hunter to go extinct, it probably took massive changes in their environment. Changes in ocean currents caused by shifts in the tectonic plates caused major changes in the water temperatures. This likely caused krill to become less abundant in tropical waters. Several whale species went extinct, and many of those who survived moved to areas with better food supply, such as colder polar waters. Megalodon likely couldn't survive or at least breed in those areas. So, with not enough whales in the tropics and a huge body requiring lots of energy, Megalodon starved to oblivion.
This was the best day ever for cetaceans, and they raved on for millions of years until humans got involved and spoiled the party.
But in just those couple million years without megalodons, whale populations exploded. New species appeared, including the amazingly huge blue whale. Without a whale-eating apex predator, there was little pressure to be nimble, and their bodies essentially became factories to turn tiny crustaceans into blubber reservoirs.
But this wasn't truly the end to Megalodon's place in the human psyche. Their amazing biology has fascinated people for as long as their teeth have been discovered by beachgoers.
Naturalists and scientists have been studying their teeth since at least the 1600s. Of course, at the time, most people assumed the teeth belonged to dragons or monsters. But the similarity to great white teeth was quickly pointed out, and the myth of a living giant shark was born. The name Megalodon was coined back in 1843, and from those early teeth analyses, everyone could tell they were like nothing we'd ever seen before or since. Their teeth are still being found and sold on the internet, and even though these fossils belong in museums, many people still buy them. Though the larger teeth go for thousands of dollars, so maybe not the savviest investment.
And yet, many people still wonder if there could still be any megalodons alive in the depths of the ocean.
But don't worry, something so big would have been spotted by now. They would have to come closer to the surface to look for whales. The ocean is a peaceful place where you can go and relax and enjoy the beauty of the natural. Nessie, Bigfoot, Abominable Snowman, Tully Monster. When you're this iconic and this elusive, you get an awesome nickname. The only difference between these creatures is that Tully Monster was actually a real sea creature that lived 300 million years ago. This extinct icon is Tullymonstrum gregarium.
Tullymonstrum gregarium, otherwise known as the Tully monster, was a soft-bodied thing that lived in shallow coastal waters about 300 million years ago.
I call it a thing not out of disrespect, but because paleontologists genuinely don't know what it was.
The best way to describe how it looked is like something from a Teletubbies fever dream.
The Tully monster ranged from about 7 to 38 centimeters long. It was tapered at both ends into a shape that sort of resembled a melted, stretched-out football. On the front, it had a long proboscis, or trunk, that ended in a pincer-like mouth filled with teeny-weeny teeth. Near the base of the snout were 2 eyes on stalks jutting out perpendicular to the body.
These eyes played a big role in the most recent attempt to classify the Tully monster, but we'll get to that later.
Its Gumby-like body was extremely bendy and possibly segmented like a worm. The back end of the Tully monster featured a tail with a frilly fin on either side. Based on its flexibility and fins, it was likely a great swimmer and might have been reminiscent of a squid while swimming along the sea floor.
Tully monster fossils have only ever been found in a single location, in the strip mines near Braidwood, Illinois. Strip mining is when an open pit is dug to expose materials, in this case coal.
Mining here began in the 1920s, and layers of shale were removed and tossed aside. Not long after, the fossil collectors caught wind of this bounty and began picking over the now exposed rocks. Within them was an absolute wealth of fossils.
Back 300 million years ago, during the late Carboniferous, North America was experiencing an uplift, transitioning from being covered mostly in seas to a more terrestrial landscape.
The swamp forests in the area where the Tully monster was found created layers of shale in which impressions of these creatures were perfectly preserved. Most soft-bodied sea creatures are never preserved for the ages because they're scavenged as soon as they die. But the conditions in Illinois at the time were just right, with dead Tully monsters and other soft-bodied creatures being buried quickly on the sea floor before scavengers had a chance to do their worst.
Because the Tully monster is only found in Illinois, it was selected to be the official state fossil back in 1989.
The Tully monster was discovered, unsurprisingly, by a fossil collector named Francis Tully in the Mason Creek fossil beds in 1958. Baffled by what he had found, he brought the specimens to the paleontologists at Chicago's Field Museum of Natural History. They dubbed it the Tully monster.
Monster wasn't necessarily a judgment call, but rather simply meant an animal or plant with abnormal form or structure, which is, of course, putting it mildly.
So far, paleontologists believe the Tully monster to be monotypic, or the only species in its Tullymonstrum genus. Essentially, all we know for certain is that the Tully monster truly is an epic noodle scratcher.
It's not that we don't have enough specimens to examine. So far, over 100 Tully monster fossils have been found. The issue is rather that this creature is so utterly weird that it defies all classification.
When classifying new extinct or extant species, scientists rely on homology, the similarity in development, structure, and physiology of different species of common ancestry to determine how a creature fits into our known groupings.
The issue with the Tully monster, and what also makes it so fascinating, is that it is utterly and frustratingly unique. Scientists have attempted to cram it into no less than 3 phyla during its short time on the scene.
Some believed that it belonged to the second largest invertebrate phylum, Mollusca, or mollusks, due to its anatomical similarities to the Pterotrachea genus. This phylum has at least 85,000 living and likely 100,000 extinct species, but even mollusk enthusiasts will admit that this is a poorly studied group, and the true number of total species is probably much higher. Despite those gaps in knowledge, scientists are almost certain now that Tully monster is not among them.
Next up on the list of past potential phyla,
Annelida, or ringed and segmented worms, likely due to Tully monster's segmented body shape. This phylum has about 20,000 members, and much like Mollusca, this group includes both land and water-dwelling species. But alas, according to further studies, it probably also wasn't an annelid. Finally, there was the phylum Chordata, which includes all vertebrates, even us humans. Chordates are defined by 4 main features: a notochord, a cartilaginous rod that supports the body, a hollow nerve cord running along the back, pharyngeal slits, and a tail that starts after the anus. You're probably thinking, I can't possibly be a chordate because I don't have slits in my throat, or a notochord, or a tail for that matter. But I'm here to tell you that you did. When you were in the womb, you had gills and a cute little tail. These characteristics still count towards being a chordate, even if you lose them before you're born. More recent studies, however, have indicated that Tully monster probably wasn't a chordate either. Other theories about Tully monster relatives include gastropods, gelatinous free-swimming snails, otherwise known as sea elephants, and the extinct conodont, which resembles living lampreys. Be sure to check out our lamprey episode for more on those weirdos. The most recent debate about what the heck the Tully monster was started in 2016 with its eyes. A group of researchers suggested that the Tully monster was indeed a vertebrate because its eye pigments were arranged similarly to other vertebrates. More research in 2019, however, challenged this assumption after examining the chemical makeup of the eyes with a particle accelerator. It turns out that the zinc to copper ratio in the eyes was actually more similar to invertebrates than vertebrates. So back to square one. All that to say, 65 years after its discovery, and we're still not any closer to knowing what the heck the Tully monster actually was, other than a stranger than fiction, weird as hell enigma. So what should we talk about next? Please let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every week. Thanks for coming along on this journey through time. I'll see you later.
Meet the Stargazer, the electric, venomous monster of the sea, and new addition to my nightmares. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault, and you're watching Animalogic. Stargazers are fish of 2 families, electric